George Walker Bush announcing by fiat, and it evoked a stirring series of editorials by conservative columnist William Safire, that he will now have military tribunals to try terrorists, could be held here in the United States. And in those military tribunals, they don't have to reveal evidence if it's in the interest of national security. They don't have to disclose the voting. They don't have to publicize the trial. And the person convicted can be executed even if 1/3 of the officers disagree. The Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution provides the right to a fair and speedy trial, the right to confront one's accusers and to examine the evidence against him. Also, under the Patriot Act, it is legal for the FBI to come into any business on a terrorist investigation and seize all of the business records. And what's more, there's a clause in there that says that if it's your business, you can't tell anybody that the FBI was there, or they can lock you up. There goes the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, part of the First Amendment. Now, people who read this, who want to defend the Bush administration, will say, good grief, they wrote a sunset clause into this. It's supposed to go away after 4 years. Well, if you read the sunset clause, and it's in my last issue of From the Wilderness, there's a provision in there that says this clause applies except for in any case where where the investigation was begun before the sunset clause takes effect. The sunset clause doesn't exist. All they have to say is, we started this investigation before it's a date in 2005. And there is no sunset clause. There is no Santa Claus, maybe. This is just the beginning. I didn't become a policeman to break laws. I became a policeman to protect people and to enforce laws.
In the article in Inside Magazine, it was mentioned that you didn't get a chance to read the bill completely before you had to vote on it. Is that true?
You know, that is interesting because a lot of people are fascinated with that possibility, and it is true. And they think, well, is this the first time that's happened? And I say, no. Anything that's important, that's the usually way they do it. Unfortunately, what they do is they pull these shenanigans and say, you don't have much time. But we looked real hard for that bill. And even while I was going to the floor of the staff, still could not get it off the internet. So that in itself should have been a reason for everybody to vote against it. So there was not a full disclosure there. We had an idea that they were taking a reasonably bad bill and substituting a very bad bill, which was the Senate version. The House had actually cleaned up the Senate version to some degree, but they switched it at the last minute. We did not have it in front of us, so that even made it that much easier to vote against.
And I am a very poor example. 23 years. I've been shot at twice. I've been made homeless. I've been forced into bankruptcy. I was told that if I ever had children, they'd be killed. I was denied employment. I was arrested on phony charges. I've had all of that in 23 years, and yet my sacrifice pales by comparison to some brave men I know. And I'll mention two out of dozens that I know. One is Celerino Castillo, a DEA agent who lives in McAllen, Texas, in poverty, who watched the CIA loading planes full of cocaine at Ilopango Airfield in El Salvador, who confronted Vice President George Bush then, and who was told to leave it alone. It's a White House operation. The DEA forced him out and almost killed him like Serpico. And the other is the Marine colonel by the name of Jim Sabo, who caught those CIA C-130s flying cocaine onto his base at El Toro Marine Air Station and was murdered because of it. People like us and I'm just one of many, have been trying to tell people like you that unless you face this now and pay the price, this is what the end result is going to be, and it's only going to get worse. Catherine Austin Fitts has a great saying, if we can face it, God can fix it. But it can't happen until we face it. Now let me show you what's on the drawing boards. This is being debated right now. Model State Emergency Health Powers Act as of October 23rd. This goes in conjunction with the 300 million doses of smallpox vaccine that are being ordered. This is an act that will give state and local governments the right to seal off neighborhoods, herd people into stadiums, close down all transportation, water, and communications, seal off everything, suspend the Constitution, seize property, and suspend the writ of habeas corpus. All justified under a supposed threat of massive biological warfare. This is being debated right now. The criminality of this regime is out of the closet. I noticed it was out of the closet in May when Citibank bought Banamex. They don't care anymore. They're arrogant. But I got news for you. These guys, and especially George W. Bush, play in a rigged game. They've always played in a rigged game. And those who play in a rigged game get stupid. Because they don't have to perform. Their arrogance gets them. Now, if you have any lingering doubts, and you can go to my website and read all of these documents of Operation Northwoods. These are declassified top secret documents from 1962 showing that the Joint Chiefs of Staff had planned to shoot down 2 American airliners and blame it on Fidel Castro for the purpose of getting a war with Cuba. You don't have to believe me. Go read the declassified documents yourself. They don't care about us. Okay? They're all on the website. The victorious warlord set to open opium floodgates. The Northern Alliance is planning opium poppies hand over fist, and the CIA will control that drug trade and control the money to keep the bubble on Wall Street afloat. I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. I may have scared you, and I love it when people come up to me and say, Mike, what am I supposed to do? And I know that in your head you're saying, you don't want me to tell you what you're supposed to do, because what you want me to tell you is something that'll let you go home, drink a beer, watch your television set, and manage your 401k plan. Okay? Yeah, you can write, and I got to tell you, From the Wilderness, my newsletter has doubled in size since September the 11th. And you know what I'm doing with the money? I'm hiring reporters and I'm writing more stories. One thing you can do... One thing you can do is vote with your money. Stop giving money to people who lie to you. Okay? Now, I'll give you a little word of inspiration. I'll give you, this is a comment on the Patriot Act. It says our forefathers would think it's time for a revolution. This is why they revolted in the first place. They revolted against much milder oppression. And who said it? A Republican Congressman, Ron Paul of Texas.
To vote against the Patriot Act was a very easy vote for me. To me, it was a clear violation of the civil liberties of all Americans. It was called Patriot Act because they didn't want anybody to vote against it, claiming that if you didn't vote for it, you weren't a patriotic American citizen. I think it was probably the opposite way. I think those who voted for it voted for a bill that undermined the Fourth Amendment, the whole principles of individual freedom and liberty in this country. So it was very easy for me to oppose a bill that would just open up Pandora's box with search warrants and the whole ability to wiretap and listen to all our communications, whether they were on the internet, and check on websites, the whole works. It was very easy for me to vote against that bill.
And there are other actions